Hi, and welcome to our masterclass on how to access altered states of mind for powerful guidance and problem solving. What I'm going to be presenting to you are some of the core ideas from the legendary Silva method, pioneered by Jose Silva. So here's what we're going to cover. We're going to learn how to tap into alpha, theta, and delta wave frequencies of the human mind to get into states of profound creativity, intuitive guidance, and even create coincidences to move you forward. Today, it may seem that we are more isolated than ever in a truly unpredictable world. But the question is, are we really alone? And as you will see, this masterclass and what you're going to learn here through the works of Jose Silva suggests that we are not a single-dimensional being, that we exist in multiple dimensions, and we have access to tools from these other dimensions. Silva went on to say that when you can learn to do this, you become a genius. Think about the great geniuses throughout history. They would often talk about flashes of inspiration, eureka moments. Nikola Tesla, who has been identified recently as one of the most prominent inventors of our era, would speak about lights and intuitive guidance, and he would see complete constructions in his head. Thomas Edison, who is known for his 2,000 plus patents, would speak about his famous afternoon naps, where he would lie down on the couch with a metal ball in his hand. And as he'd drift off in sleep, his hand would drop, the ball would hit the ground, where there'd be a metal plate, creating a loud clang that would wake him up. And he would get ideas and remnants from these dips into napping, except he wasn't napping. He was tapping into what is called a theta frequency. So it's no surprising that when Napoleon Hill, the legendary personal growth writer of the 20s, 30s, and 40s, was asked to interview the world's greatest minds and figure out what made them tick, he wrote this in his classic book, Think and Grow Rich. He said, "A genius is a man who has discovered how to increase the intensity of thought to a point where he can freely communicate with sources of knowledge not available through the ordinary rate of thought." This is what you're about to learn. So why do altered states matter? Well, there are three things we're going to talk about here. First, getting guidance or intuition. Second, removing blocks or manifesting. And third is dipping into a state called delta, where you're able to access guidance from a higher source. Recently, I polled my audience at Mindvalley, 50 million people strong across all our social media. And I asked them, what are the biggest things in life that you would love to solve right now? Now, these were the two biggest things, and see if you relate. So of thousands of responses and hundreds of different entries, 29% of these entries fell into the realm of abundance. We want more abundance in our life. Abundance of finances, obviously. We want to be able to live well, but also abundance of love, abundance of happiness, abundance of health. Abundance. It's freaking glorious. And the second thing was kind of strange. I didn't expect this, but people, 29% equal to abundance. People wanted to be able to focus better. They said that they were distracted by lack of focus. They were procrastinating. Now, a lot of this was also because of the pandemic. The pandemic put us in a brain state where your brain releases a chemical called norepinephrine. Norepinephrine is released when you are under threat, when you are in social isolation, when we aren't connecting with the people we normally connect with. But a side effect of it, according to Stephen Kotler, who is a master researcher in flow states, is that you lose focus and you feel overwhelmed. What you're going to learn in this class is how to take back control of your brain. So first, if you know me, you're excited to be here and you know why you're here. If you don't know me, allow me to do a quick introduction. My name is Vishen Lakhiani, and I'm the founder of Mindvalley. Mindvalley today is one of the top 3 biggest personal growth companies on the entire planet. We have 15 million students, spectacular events, festivals, and seminars across the world, an award-winning platform that is used by governments, Fortune 500 companies, schools, and millions upon millions of users. And I've written 2 New York Times bestsellers on the human mind. My most recent book, The Buddha and the Badass, just hit #1 on the Wall Street Journal, and The Code of the Extraordinary Mind briefly became the #1 book in the entire planet on Amazon for 5 days. And the reason for this is because of my exploration on how altered states of mind can improve the human experience in every dimension. Now, my book, The Code of the Extraordinary Mind, hit #1 in multiple categories on Amazon. Take a look at this slide. It was #1 in religion and spirituality, in self-help, in business and money, and even in health, fitness, and dieting. And the reason is because the ideas I'm about to teach you apply in all of these areas. You can use it for health. You can use it to connect with your spirit. You can use it to grow your business and your income. But the idea is rooted in this subtle change: active versus passive meditation. I bet you've tried meditation. In fact, the studies show that the majority of Americans who start meditating give up. And the reason for this is because meditating can be hard. I mean, it's about keeping thoughts out of your head, focusing on one thing, listening to your breathing. Well, the good news is this: that is passive meditation. And I agree, passive meditation can be challenging. Don't get me wrong, it has its benefits, but we're not going to be exploring that. What we're going to be exploring is a form of meditation called active meditation. You do not have to clear your thoughts. You do not have to focus on your breathing. If a thought that's bugging you enters your mind, you learn to manipulate it and turn it into a powerful solution. Active meditation is a game changer. This is why so many entrepreneurs, people who tend to, be naturally ADD, who cannot slow their mind down, so many entrepreneurs fail at regular meditation. But active meditation, they jump on it and they finally see that it all clicks. So keep this distinction in mind. Even if meditation has never worked for you, this is a unique approach. In fact, one could barely call it meditation in the first place. Rather, you might call it meditation for performance. And speaking of performance, here are some of my students, and see if you recognize any of these. First, Tony Gonzalez. I taught Tony Gonzalez meditation, and in an article in the New York Times, he mentions that he meditates to the techniques I taught him. Another one of my students, Bianca Andrescu, she attended one of my classes when she was around 17 years old. At the age of 19, using some of the techniques she learned, namely creative visualization, she accomplished an insane goal. She won the US Open and beat Serena Williams at the age of 19. Articles about this blew up the internet, and when the reporters asked her how she did it, she asked for a phone and pulled up my book. And it turns out that Bianca wasn't just a reader of the Code of the Extraordinary Mind, she had actually graduated from my seminar, Be Extraordinary, the seminar based on the book.
I really think that intuition is a very big part of us human beings.
Then there's Camilla Hansen, Miss Sweden. Camilla has used some of these techniques, particularly the creative visualization portion, to not only heal her skin, but also to launch a successful online CBD oil company. Here's what Camilla said.
I love Mindvalley. Like I said, my life would not be the same without it. Like literally my whole life switched when I came across you and Mindvalley. So I'm forever grateful for that. I was always struggling with breakouts. I was eating this perfect organic diet and I still struggled with my skin until I came across that meditation of yours.
And healing meditation from Silva.
After 10 years of struggling, like it just healed my skin.
And then there's the feel of music. I was so honored when Billboard magazine did a story on the R&B rock star Miguel and how he meditates with his entire team before taking the stage. The meditation that Miguel uses, it's the meditation I designed. And this is why I've been asked to teach these ideas to everyone from the Malaysian government to employees at Google to the United Nations in Vienna and even at Facebook HQ. What you're seeing in this picture is me teaching a Silva class to over 500 people in a giant auditorium in Tallinn, Estonia. And as out there as these ideas may seem, I was recently asked to speak at South by Southwest on the main stage and at the 7th Annual Biohacking Conference. These never happened, of course, because they were canceled due to COVID-19. But I share these because I want you to know that, the fact that you're here, 5 years ago, it would probably be a little weird if you told your friends you were going to spend an hour and a half attending a talk on accessing altered states. They'd probably think that you were a little bit too woo-woo. But right now, this content is what I was going to present on the main stage of South by Southwest. This stuff is now becoming mainstream, and it's changing the world. So much so that at least one CEO I know said this. His name is John Butcher. He's the founder of the billion-dollar Precious Moments empire. And he said, any CEO who is not tapping into altered states of mind is at a competitive disadvantage. So how did I get into this? Well, it starts with a really bizarre story, but please have an open mind. Now, it started when I was 26 years old. That's a picture of me at 26. I was living in New York, and I grew tired of New York, and I decided to move to Silicon Valley, to San Francisco. It was 2001 when I landed in San Francisco. And my timing, in a word, sucked. In April 2001, the dot-com bubble burst. Everything collapsed. 14,000 people were laid off. I couldn't get a job. And if that wasn't agony enough, going months and months and months, not even being able to afford rent, but sleeping on a couch, September 11 then hit, making the economy go further into a recession. I was sending out my resume to anyone that would hire me. And finally, I got a big break. A company that developed and sold software to law firms hired me, but on the condition that I only get paid if I close a sale. They asked me if I had any sales experience. I had none, but I didn't dare tell them that because I was sick and tired of sleeping on my friends' couches. I wanted to at least have enough money for rent. So I jumped into this job knowing nothing about sales. In my first month, I made a big fat zero because I couldn't get a single lawyer to show enough enthusiasm to actually buy my software. But it was worse than that. Now, back then, this is what we had to do. I was assigned a territory. It was San Antonio, Texas. I had to call every lawyer in San Antonio, Texas in the Yellow Pages from A to Z. And if you know anything about American Texan lawyers, you know this. If you are a telemarketer or a salesperson and you interrupt a Texan lawyer in the middle of a busy day, you're going to hear more kids than you'd ever imagine you would hear in a 24-hour period. But not only that, these were American lawyers. They would tell me to F off in the most creative ways involving broom handles and blenders and body parts I dare not mention. And so one day after, I guess, the 13th lawyer verbally abused me, I decided that I either had to change something about my life or I had to quit. Now back then, this new technology had just emerged. We called it Google. Google was this new search engine that was just starting to rise in dominance. So I got on Google and I needed answers. I started Googling for hope. I asked Google, I don't remember what I typed in that day, but it may have been, Google, why does my life suck so bad? Or Google, give me an answer. Or Google, why are Texan lawyers such assholes? But what I do know is that day I saw a website on Google, and it was about meditation. It was a name I recognized, the Silva Method. I'd read those books when I was a kid. The Silva Method books were hugely popular in the 70s and 80s and 90s, but this was about a new creation by Jose Silva called Silva Ultramind. Apparently it was his final work. He had created it in 96, released it to the world, but before it could really take off, he passed away in 1999. And so there were very few seminars teaching this, but I was intrigued at what the website claimed. The seminar was being taught in LA by a pharmaceutical salesperson, and she mentioned that she had used the tools here to overcome a tragic divorce. She had built her life back. She had jacked up her sales. She was now driving a Ferrari, and she'd met the man of her dreams. And this is why she'd decided, in addition to being a pharma sales rep, to teach the Silva Method, and that she had a class happening that very weekend. That was enough for me. I put the few dollars I had into a plane ticket, flew to LA, showed up for the class. Now, interestingly, when I showed up, I realized that as good at sales as she must have been, she wasn't good at marketing. I was the only student who showed up, but I took that to my advantage. I got incredible one-on-one training with her, and I experienced the power of the Silva Ultramind system. Now, the class was meant to be 2 days, but because I had one-on-one attention, I finished it in one day, in that Saturday, going all the way up to like 9 p.m. I then raced back to the airport, flew to San Francisco, and arrived early Sunday morning in the a.m. I was ready to start my day on Monday. That Sunday, I put what I learned into action. I meditated and I applied the meditation process to go into deep levels of mind. I applied what is called the 3 scenes technique to see my life unfolding in different ways. I applied the mental video technique. And on Monday, I showed up at work and I started putting these techniques into place. Now, back then, to get my list of lawyers to call up, I had to go to the San Francisco Public Library, check the yellow pages for San Antonio, get to the page on law firms, photocopy that page, rush back to my office, and call every attorney from A to Z. But this time, I decided to try what I learned in Silva, namely to tap into an altered state of mind called waking theta, and then tap into human intuition. I would sink into my meditative state, put the piece of paper on my table, run my fingers down the page, and I would only call the lawyers for which I felt an impulse. The impulse, I'll explain it this way. It kind of felt like positivity, like a light, happy, positive feeling. And I would only call those names that gave me that impulse. I would not call any name that didn't give me that hit. Overnight, I doubled my sales. Now, if you know anything about professional level sales, you know that salespeople, they track everything, right? It's an empirical process. You know the number of calls you have to make, you know the number of people who are going to tell you to F off, the number of people who are going to provide you your credit card, the number of people you're going to bill. I tracked everything. And at the end of that week, I doubled my sales. Now, at first I thought maybe this is an aberration, but the next week, I doubled it again when I brought in more Silva techniques. I started growing in my performance so massively that my boss came to me and he said, Vishen, what are you doing? And I said, I think they call it ESP. And he said, nah, that's bullshit, but can you keep doing it? And I grew so fast. My company promoted me 3 times in 4 months. There's something unique about Silva. Once you learn these tools, you can't sit still. No matter how much you succeed, you will have a fire to do more and more and more. Every success builds on top of each other. And soon I grew satisfied working at this company. 18 months had elapsed. And I decided I was able to do so many things. At this point, because of Silva, I was vice president of sales running their New York office in one of the most outstanding buildings in the city, Chelsea Market. It's one of the most, my office is where YouTube Studio sits today. But I was so productive, I was able to take on a second job as business development director. I was able to do 2 jobs in the space of time as an ordinary human being because my mind was so powerful due to Silva. I could use intuition to make better decisions. I could use the alpha level of mind and manifesting to create synchronicities. I was hyper productive, but I needed to do more because why work as a VP of sales when you have this level of potential? So at that point, I decided I needed to go bigger. And I remembered something. I was the only person who showed up for that Silva Ultramind class. Yet these techniques had taught me so much more than my degree at the prestigious University of Michigan School of Engineering. So I decided to become a Silva instructor. I quit my job cold turkey. I became a Silva instructor. And then I used the tools of Silva to grow and elevate my career. That led to me creating the company called Mindvalley, to Mindvalley growing into the business of it today. It led to me just a few months ago getting an award here in the country in which I'm filming this for Mindvalley being the most successful bootstrap startup in Estonia. And for me being recognized by the president of the country I'm in right now as the most recognized foreign founder in the country. None of these awards, none of these accomplishments would have been possible if it wasn't for Silva and the tools that I'm about to teach you here, guiding me throughout my life. Let me show you something. The picture you're seeing here is the picture of my first office. At this point, I'd moved back to my home country, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. That's my first office when I started out as an entrepreneur. I set a goal to have one of the most beautiful offices in the world because I love interior design. This is what happened next. Our office, now called the Temple of Light, made Inc. magazine. Top 10 most beautiful workspaces in the world, 2019. This was one of just many goals that I was able to see in my mind on the mental screen that you're going to learn here, and then see them rush into my life with an ease and a fluidity that almost makes you feel that life is magical. And so I want to pause here, and I want you to do an exercise with me. I want you to open up your journal or a piece of paper and write down one goal that you'd love to accomplish, assuming you had easy access to intuition, assuming you knew this powerful technique to visualize your future and bring it towards you. What is one goal that you would love to accomplish? Write it down. Now, one of the things that makes Silva truly unique, Jose Silva doesn't just teach you to go deep into your goals. He teaches you a concept I call the compass and the rocket. You don't just rocket towards a goal. First, you use your compass or your intuition to identify if your goal is right for you, if you're aiming for the right goal. So this is a further nuance that we'll cover when you go deeper into the Silva Ultramind system. Sometimes what we think is a goal that we want isn't right for us. There's something else we're meant to be doing. Silva helps you identify that compass and then rocket towards it. Now, I hope you understand I was joking when I mentioned Texas lawyers being assholes. No disrespect. Silva was actually founded in Texas, in a little border town on the Texan-Mexican border called Laredo. And speaking of Texas, I was recently interviewing one of Texas' most famous sons, Matthew McConaughey. Matthew, if you've been following the news, just announced that he might be running for governor of Texas. And as I interviewed Matthew, he shared with me a really interesting idea. You see, Matthew, when he was young, wrote down all his goals on a sheet of paper. He shared this with me, and he was in a fraternity when he wrote this down. This is the piece of paper that he shared in his autobiography. Notice that one goal, win a Best Actor Oscar. 20 years later, Matthew McConaughey won that Oscar. Think about it. That's a goal that only one person gets to hit every year. He wrote it down and 20 years later achieved it. And I asked Matthew, what do you think is going on? Do you think that was just purely 1 in a billion chance? And he said, no. The target attracts the arrow. Now, what he meant by this is that what if there are goals out there that the universe or a higher force wants to achieve, and it's looking for the arrow. The target already exists. The target is looking to attract the right arrow. I sometimes ask myself, did I build this dream company, Mindvalley? Or was Mindvalley already in the universe's plan, and I was the arrow that it chose to hit that target? This is why it's so important to check into your intuition first before you aim for a goal. Because what if there's a target out there calling you, asking you to be that arrow, and you aren't listening? This is why intuition development is one of the most powerful tools you can learn. Now, before we go further, the Silva Ultramind program covers 8 outcomes. Let's do a quick pulse check. So one of the principles of transformation is that you got to know where you are so that you can see how much you're growing. This keeps your motivation high, it keeps you moving along, and it's part of the system in which we design Mindvalley programs, which is why Mindvalley programs have like a ridiculously high completion rate, almost 5 times the industry average. I'm going to ask you to rate yourself in these 8 areas. These are areas we're going to be focusing on. Now, the first area is this. Develop crystal clear intuition. Look at this statement and rate yourself on a score of 1 to 5. 5 meaning you are so intuitive that you have waking intuition. You get guidance instantly. Next, multiply your manifesting power. This means you can have an intention, and within days, you see that intention becoming real in the world. Third, career growth. This means you're able to bring altered state access into your career, like the story of me running my finger down the yellow pages. Fourth, boosting creativity. Rate yourself from 1 to 5. Now, 5 means this. If you're writing a book or if you're in any type of artistic pursuit, creativity can just flow. I can be given any book topic right now. I can go into my theta level of mind and just let that creativity flow. This is similar to some of the stuff that you may have heard great inventors speak about when ideas come to them fully formed in their head, like how Elias Howe invented the sewing machine, how Tesla came up with the AC motor. Again, rate yourself from 1 to 5. Next, being totally grounded. This means even in the midst of chaos, you can go into this peaceful Zen-like state of mind and be grounded. 6, discovering and honoring your purpose, knowing what targets are pulling yourself as an arrow. That's really what being aligned with your purpose means. Next, having the skills for alternative healing. What this means is being able to visualize your body healing so you can reverse aging, heal things like, for example, your skin, even lose weight, accelerate healing from injury, and keep yourself in high states of youth and vitality as you get older. And finally, achieving self-awareness. This is when you're truly aware of your true potential, you can magnify your strengths, and you can overcome your weaknesses. So let's talk about Jose Silva and how this remarkable man stumbled upon these ideas. Now, Jose Silva was a radio repairman in Laredo, Texas. And when he worked for the US Army, he observed something interesting. He saw a hypnotherapist being brought into the US military to help soldiers overcome PTSD and stress. This got him very interested in hypnotherapy, and he decided to dive into that exploration. But he had a reason for it. You see, Jose had 10 children. And being a radio repairman, he knew that if you reduce the resistance in a wire, more electricity flows. He wondered, is there a resistance in the brain? And if we could reduce this resistance, would his kids do better at school? So he started exploring relaxation techniques, biofeedback, and hypnotherapy. Back then, the word meditation was hardly used. Now, keep in mind, this was like the 50s and 60s. And what he found was fairly interesting. His kids' grades improved as he would guide them into a relaxed level of mind called the alpha level. Their memory would improve, their grades would improve, but then something astonishing happened. Jose was working with his daughter, Isabella, and he was helping Isabella with one of her school books. I can't remember the exact topic, but let's say it was history. So Jose would train his kids this way. He would guide Isabella into a relaxed state of mind called the alpha level, and then he would ask Isabella a question, and when you're at the alpha level, answers come to you faster. And so Isabella would answer the questions on, say, history. But then something weird happened. As Jose formulated the question in his head, for example, who was the 16th president of the United States? Before he could verbally say the question, Isabella would answer Abraham Lincoln. She was able to answer questions before Jose verbally expressed them. It was as if she was linked to his mind. Now, I met Isabella around 12 years ago. We were at a Silva conference in Greece. She shared this remarkable story with me. And Isabella today still functions as a healer. She works at a hospital in Texas, and she's what we call a medical intuit. And doctors use her. When a patient walks in, she stays in a corner. The doctor is there. She reads the patient, and then the doctor gives his diagnosis, and then she goes to the doctor, and she privately whispers to the doctor, check his kidneys. It's interesting. The doctors don't publicly say this because it's too out there. But this is how powerful Isabella's mind has become. Silva was fascinated by this, and he wrote to the leading psychic researcher of that time, Dr. J.B. Ryan at Duke University. Duke University had a famous program testing ESP. They had proven that intuition was real. And Jose said, Dr. J.B. Ryan, I think I just trained my kids to be psychic. And J.B. Ryan said, no, and what I found, no one could be trained to be psychic. Your kids were just probably born psychic. So Jose said, I don't believe that. I believe we can train someone to be psychic. And so what he did was, in addition to Isabella, he trained all his kids. And then as his kids started showing up better in school, the neighbors were sending him his kids. So he trained the neighbors' kids. Then he started training the neighbors. And he proved J.B. Ryan wrong. The rate of intuition displayed in Silva classes is astonishing. Now at that point, Silva started to grow and grow and grow. Journalists started talking about this phenomenon, the Silva method. And finally, there was an article that appeared in a local newspaper about a man who had had chronic migraine for years. And he wrote how nothing could heal his migraine. But when he learned the Silva method and was able to get into the alpha level of mind, his migraines disappeared for good. The next class was absolutely swamped. Silva continued to expand, and he became world-renowned. He started collaborating with famous scientists like William Broad at the San Antonio Mind Science Center to study the human mind. And Silva got coverage in prestigious newspapers like the New York Times. But look at this article, for example, right? It talks about brainwaves studied, and the article mentions nothing of intuition. It mentions biofeedback. Now, Silva was smart. He knew that at this time, if he went out and he said he was teaching people to be functionally psychic, people would call him crazy. So in his seminars, especially in places like New York, he positioned it to CEOs, speaking of biofeedback, how CEOs could control stress, control migraines, get better at their job. And then on day 4 of the class, he'd go, ta-da! And then he'd teach them waking psychic intuition. He'd have to build up their muscle to get to that level. But he proved time and time and time and time again that you could train someone to do this. This is why so many leading personal growth teachers were such Silva fans. For example, the late Wayne Dyer said this about Jose Silva: "Anything with the name of Jose Silva as the author has my vote before I open to page 1. Yet the entire thing, Silva method, almost never happened. Jose Silva spent years studying hypnotherapy, spent years studying psychology, and as he was so deep in this research, his radio business suffered, and his income started dipping. And one day, he wrote in his biography, he lay in bed, completely frustrated that all his passion for psychology, his passion for hypnotherapy, wasn't rewarding him in terms of financial stability. He said, I picked up a book on hypnotherapy and I just flung it across the room, determined that I would never go into that field again. That night, something interesting happened. As he slept, he saw 4 numbers in his sleep, along with a religious picture called the One Solitary Life, which had to do with Jesus. Jose Silva was a Christian. As he woke up, he realized something. That picture came from a higher power. And he mentioned later in his writing that the Jesus was simply symbology, that it was coming from a good source. Silva is non-religious. You could be of any religion. And when these insights come to you, sometimes they might come accompanied by your guru or your teacher or your holy book, okay? But Silva was fascinated by these 4 numbers, and it hit him. This is the license plate number of a car. There's someone driving a car with this license plate number that I have to meet. And so Silva went to work that day at his radio repair shop, puzzling, thinking about this number, keeping his eye out for any car. That day, a friend came to the store, and his friend said, hey, Jose, so I want to go pick up some Mexican groceries. Would you like to ride with me? I'm going to drive across the border to Nuevo Laredo, pick up my groceries, come back here. Let's go hang out, have a chat. And Jose told his friend about the number. And Jose said, yes, I'll come with you. But as we are driving, I'm going to be keeping my eye out for any car with that license plate number. His friend probably thought he was a little bit out there, but his friend decided to take Jose for the drive. Back then, crossing the Nuevo Laredo border was a lot easier than it is right now. So they drove to Nuevo Laredo, and they stopped at their favorite Mexican grocery store. As Jose was picking his groceries, he heard his friend call out, Jose, come check this out. There at the front of the counter was a Mexican lottery ticket for a local lottery. And there was the exact 4-digit number Jose had seen. Jose bought the ticket and he won $10,000. That's $50,000 in today's money. That gave him, he said, the confidence and the boost of motivation to understand that he was onto something. That money funded the rest of the research he needed to complete the Silva method. But he also went on to write in his biography, look at the coincidences that happened. The dream, the friend walking in, going to that specific grocery store, that exact number being there. He said it wasn't just intuition. There was a force, something was laying out the right people, the right circumstances, the right coincidences to move him towards that outcome. The target attracts the arrow. Thank you, Matthew McConaughey. Think about that for a second. This is what I started experiencing in my life, and this is what so many Silva graduates have experienced. Go to stories.mindvalley.com, which is our case study website. Type in Silva Ultramind. I launched this program barely a year ago. And look at the 700 case studies. What targets are waiting for you? Some of the stuff that Silva graduates have been able to accomplish are wild. In the last 10 years, I traveled around the United States meeting many prominent Silva practitioners. Many of them were in their 60s or 70s or 80s. This is one woman I visited, Helen Hadsell. That's me with my documentary crew. We filmed a short documentary on her. Now, Helen Hadsell was known as the contest queen of Texas. I traced Helen to a tiny village in Texas where she was living at that time. Helen Hadsell was able to win any competition she took part in. She was known as the contest queen because she had won 7 trips to Paris, boats, houses. She would basically take part in any sweepstake, any contest, and just win. And I asked Helen, how do you do that? And she spoke about the Silva techniques. Helen, you see, was Jose Silva's former PR director. She had the benefit of learning closely from that man. Then there's this individual, Bert Goldman. Bert Goldman was an early Mindvalley author. We published a program with him called The American Monk and another program called Quantum Jumping. Bert Goldman is in his 90s, but the thing that's incredible about Bert Goldman is even though he's in his 90s, he is a prolific creator. People who can tap into the theta states are like that. Bert has become a renowned artist. His art sells for between $10,000 to $20,000 a piece. I know because I have 2 of them in my office in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. But not only art, Bert can pick up any skill he wants. I saw him in his 80s learn to play the piano. He even developed a unique style of photography. True, applying the Silva method. The exact ideas, the exact system to develop this photography came to him in a dream. Then there's this legendary teacher. If you're a Mindvalley fan, you've heard of her, Christy Marie Sheldon. She's one of the top spiritual teachers on Mindvalley and a best-selling author from 2014 all the way to 2018. Christy Marie Sheldon started her career, she told me, when a Silva Method book fell on her head. Now I can tell you that the Silva Method is probably one of the most profound pieces of knowledge and wisdom that I've ever entered my life, which is why I'm so honored that Jose's daughter, Diana Silva, and his family asked me to bring this program together to be the new face of the Silva Method. What you're seeing here is 4 years in the making. And now that I've opened up your mind to all the possibilities and you've learned about what is possible, we're going to get on with our training. Now, to go through this training, you need to be in a space where you're not going to get disturbed. I'm going to guide you through some of these exercises, but before we begin, I need you to make a commitment. I'm going to give you my best, and what I'm going to share with you are elements of the Silva Method that before we were not allowed to share freely. They were part of a paid class. I'm going to share some of these elements with you freely. You're going to get a powerful taste of the Silva Method, and many of you, the majority of you, are going to want to go ahead, go deeper, and unlock the full possibilities. Now first, let's go on an exploration of altered states. What is an altered state of consciousness? Why do they matter? Now, Stephen Kotler, who is one of the pioneering authors and researchers of this field, Kotler says it needs to be normalized. He says we live in a monophasic society. In other words, all of us here today in the Western world, we are trained to operate in one phase, the waking level of beta. But indigenous cultures live in what is called a polyphasic society. There was a study done by a researcher called Bourguignon in 1973, and she found that all the indigenous cultures in the world, 90% of them at least, had some form of altered state access. It might be kung fu, it might be meditation, it might be dream culture where you go into lucid dreams, it might be Sufi dancing, Gnostic Christian prayer. But as we stumbled upon the rational age, we decided that anything that couldn't be explained by science was nonsense. And this momentarily caused us to shut down the access to these altered states. We stopped exploring them. This exploration is now coming to the forefront again in the Western world. So how do you access altered states? Well, there are 4 ways. The first is neurotraining. I've gone deep in neurotraining. This, for example, is me at a neurotraining facility in Canada. A neurotraining facility like that uses advanced tools. They put these electrodes on your brain in 12 different areas, and they train your brain to produce certain states, typically states associated with monks in meditation. Training like this is 5 days, and it costs $15,000. It is expensive. Neurotraining is effective, but expensive. And then there is plant medicine, which has been growing in popularity. I'm a big fan of plant medicine like ayahuasca. But even then, I only do it about once every 5 years. I have the most incredible insights under plant medicine. But plant medicine is illegal in most countries in the world. You have to journey to places like Peru or Ecuador or Costa Rica to do it. It takes a long time, 5-7 days on some of these retreats. But it's not the most pleasant experience because it involves a lot of puking. You got to be prepared to go through some pretty intense experiences. I've done it in places like the Amazon rainforest with native tribes like the Achua. And again, it's an amazing way to access altered states, but not the cleanest, easiest, and most affordable. Then there's breathwork. I love breathwork. It's wonderful. But breathwork often produces uncontrollable states and uncontrollable emotions. A lot of your shadows, a lot of your past beliefs emerge, and you are meant to deal with it. But you don't get precise tools, almost like laser surgery, to solve the specific problem you want. And that's where in the famous book by Daniel Goleman, Altered Traits, he says the number one way to access altered states is meditation. Now, I partially agree with Daniel. Yes, meditation. But the best way to access altered states, based on everything I've seen, and I've been in the meditation field for 20 years. I've launched successful meditation apps like Omvana with almost 5 million users. I've run massive meditation conferences. And the most effective form of meditation I've found to reach altered states and truly use them is Silva Ultramind. This is why this is the method I chose to bring forth to the world on Mindvalley's platform. Now, Jose Silva set up certain guidelines for his students to get great results. And the first thing he said is, you must have a burning desire, like a burning desire. Desire sparks intent, and desire causes the ripples to go in motion that bring you what you want. So before we go further, I want to ask you, what is your burning desire? Why is learning this important to you? Is there a change you want to make in your life? Is it because you feel you have unmet potential? Is it because you want to have the most incredible relationships? Is it for a contribution you want to make to the world? Write down your why. So now let's get started with the training. And there are 4 things we're going to go through. The first is understanding the states of mind. The second is accessing alpha, which is the most easiest to access state of mind. The third is the mental screen. And then 4, utilizing the power. We're going to start with the first. So let's go on to number 1, which is knowing the states. So right now, as you're watching this masterclass, as you're taking notes, most of you, according to Jose Silva, roughly 90% of you are at the beta waking frequency. This is where, if you were to hook up your brain to a device called an electroencephalograph or an EEG machine, your brain waves are beating at a waking frequency called beta, 14 to 21 cycles per second. That's pretty darn fast. This is alert. This is also the place where you find stress, anxiousness, and so on. Now, roughly 10% of people have gotten to a level where they can access the alpha level of mind. This is when your brain waves slow down to 7 to 14 cycles per second. 10% of the population, according to Jose, naturally go into alpha. Most of us have to learn how to get there. Now, when you learn to go from beta to alpha using the Silva method, you're able to make that state change in under 30 seconds after you master the technique, and that mastery takes about a week. The alpha state is associated with relaxation, with healing, with peacefulness, with bliss, with creativity. It is a remarkable state. But you can slow down your brainwave frequencies further to what is called theta. This is the dreamy state. Typically, when you get to theta, it's like how you feel as you're drifting off to sleep. Often you can't even keep your neck straight. Your neck drifts off. But with the Silva method, you learn to stay fully awake at theta. Theta is the state associated with hyper-creativity, with channeling, and with intuition. This is where a lot of the magic happens. But we don't stop there. There's a 4th state called delta. Delta is the state you go in when you're unconscious. It's when you're asleep. Now, spiritual teachers for the longest time have theorized that when we're asleep, there's some form of connection between us and higher intelligence. But because we're asleep, we're not fully conscious of it. Silva was one of the first people I knew who developed a protocol. It's called a mental video technique, and it's in the full Silva Ultramind system program that teaches you how to leverage the delta state. You literally go to sleep, implant a problem in your head, you wake up, and over the next 72 hours, you see things shift. Ideas come to you, and synchronicities develop to help you solve that problem. It's a powerful tool. It's pretty advanced, but it is powerful. And this is why I say Silva is one of the most powerful ways to access altered states, because very few programs teach you to go all the way to delta. Now, all of these states are measured in beats per second, right? This is what the electroencephalograph measures. But I want to give you an idea of what this sounds like. What you're about to hear right now is called the alpha sound. This is a simple sound that we use in the Silva training to get your brain to lock into the alpha state. This is what the alpha state sounds like. What you're hearing here is a sound with 7 to 14 beats per second. Now listen to what happens when we go to theta. It goes down to 4 to 7 beats per second. Roughly 30 to 40% of the Silva class is done with the alpha sound, and 60 to 70% is done with the theta sound to train you to stay fully awake at the theta level of mind. Now, this is the key. You are already in alpha in the first 5 minutes of the morning when you wake up. So you don't have to worry, can I get to alpha? All of us already go to alpha. In fact, as we're going to bed, as we're falling asleep, we go from beta to alpha to theta to delta. Now, when you wake up, you're going from delta to theta to alpha and then to fully awake, but you're in alpha when you wake up in the morning. You're feeling a little bit groggy. You can kind of reflect on some dreams. And this is the moment you want to use to meditate. So go use the bathroom if you must. Go brush your teeth. Then get back on bed. Sit up straight. You can keep your feet crossed. You can keep your feet extended. But sit up straight, maybe with a pillow behind you and a pillow to support your hands. And you're then going to go to step 2. And I'm going to teach you how to go deeper and stay in that alpha state. And to do this, we're going to learn a technique called the 40-day technique. When I was 14 years old, and my dad gave me my first Silva book, this was the technique I learned in the book. I dreamed of attending a Silva class. I just was 14. I didn't have the money for it. So for 40 days, I applied this technique that Jose Silva outlined to train you to get to the alpha level of mind and to stay there consciously. And the results I got were amazing. But it did take 40 days. If you absolutely do not have money, this is how you want to approach it. Observe this diagram. What you're going to do is you're going to stay in bed. Remember, you're sitting up. Your legs may be cross-legged, your legs may be extended, and you're going to count backwards. For the first 10 days, you're going to count backwards from 100 to 1. And when you hit 1, you know you're at alpha. You're conditioning your mind to stay at that level, to embrace that level. At that point, when you're at alpha, at the count of 1, you're going to learn creative visualization. You're going to apply that using the mental screen. I'll teach you that in a moment, so stay tuned. Now, the good thing is this. After around 10 days, your brain gets conditioned to it, and you can now go to alpha counting backwards from 50 to 1. After 10 days of that, you can go to alpha counting from 20 to 1. And after 10 days of that, you can go to alpha counting from 10 to 1. And then it's literally 10 seconds, and you're at the alpha level of mind, and you're ready to put on your mental screen and use the tools I'm about to teach you to perform creative visualization to move you towards your goals. What do you do when you reach these states? Well, that's where the rest of the Silva Ultramind technique comes in. There's the mental video technique, there's the 3 scenes technique. You're going to learn how to bring all of these techniques together as you go through the full program. But for today, I'm still going to teach you something powerful, and it's called the mental video technique. Now let's do a quick recap. Step 1, know the various states. Beta, alpha, theta, delta. Step 2, know the 40-day countdown technique to teach yourself to get to alpha. By the time you hit day 31, you are able to get to alpha counting backwards from 10 to 1. And now we come to the mental screen. So I want to give you an idea of what the mental screen looks like. Imagine a giant television in front of you, much like my television here. Think of the biggest TV you've seen and imagine this giant screen in front of you. Now, if you could imagine this as big as a cinema screen, even better. This is called your mental screen. It is on the screen that you're going to project imagery of what you want to attract into your life. Jose found that as you close your eyes and you see this mental screen in your inner mind, imagine the screen is 20 degrees above the line of horizon. This automatically causes your eyeballs to go up 20 degrees. This has been proven by science to help generate alpha waves in your brain. Now, the mistake many people make with creative visualization is they're doing it at the beta level. But when you can get to the alpha level, the power is multiplied. So everything you think you've learned about law of attraction or the movie The Secret, it's incomplete. They tell you thoughts create reality. Yes, it does to some degree. But when you're able to harness these thoughts in the right way using the mental screen while being at waking alpha, you get a multiple of the impact. Let's imagine the mental screen is in front of you right now. Let's do a quick exercise. On your giant mental screen, as big as you can make it, I want you to turn the screen completely black at the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Imagine the screen completely black. Now at the count of 3, imagine the screen completely white. 1, 2, 3. Now imagine a banana, a single banana on the screen. 1, 2, 3. Now at the count of 3, imagine an orange on the screen. 1, 2, 3. You see how easy that is? Now, when you go to the Silva training, you actually learn to improve your visualization ability. You learn to see vivid colors. You learn to see vivid fruits. You get to a level where you can almost smell the banana. This is part of the training, and all of this magnifies your ability to move you towards the outcomes you want and to solve problems. It also magnifies your ability to receive solutions through intuition. And now we go to step 4, utilizing the power. And now we come to the 3 scenes technique. I'm so excited to teach you this technique because for the longest time, literally decades, you could only learn this technique by taking a Silva class. Now I want you to keep something in mind. I'm going to teach you this technique at a very surface level. If you are in the full Silva Ultramind class, we go into a lot more nuance and we program this technique onto your subconscious mind. So its efficacy goes up significantly. But today, as you're here in this masterclass, I want to teach you this technique so you can start using it immediately. Just know that the impact multiplies as you go deeper into the Silva class, and Jose Silva's hypnotherapy script, as I read it out to you, programs this into your mind at the alpha and then theta level. Now here's how the technique works, and there's a reason it's called the 3 scenes technique. Remember that mental screen we spoke about earlier? Well, we're going to be utilizing it. The basic technique looks like this. I want you to pick a problem that you want to solve. It could be a fight with someone you love. It could be the fact that you feel unrecognized and unappreciated in your career. It could be that the business you're trying to start is failing. Now in scene 1, you see and feel the pain. Scene 1 is your mental screen directly in front of you. See and feel the pain. And then you're going to move the screen 15 degrees to the left. Now why to the left? In his studies with hypnotherapy, Jose Silva found that when you made someone progress to the future, they move to the left. If you made someone reflect on the past, they move to the right. From this, he concluded that your subconscious mind perceives the future to your left. So what is in the present is showing your subconscious mind that this is the present reality. When you move your screen 15 degrees to the left, it's telling your subconscious mind this is the near future. Now in that second scene, what you're going to see is some symbolic or real action that you need to resolve the situation. If it's a fight with a loved one, maybe it's you or them apologizing and making up. If it's not feeling appreciated at work, maybe it's some shift you make in your career. Could be getting a new job, could be having an open conversation with your peers. If a business or a project is lagging, maybe it is an insight that hits you. Maybe it is a course you enroll in to help you overcome that hurdle. See yourself taking some action. And in a moment, I'll show you what to visualize if the problem involves health. So if your problem is health, just be patient for a moment. We're going to come to that. Now, the third scene, you see the problem fully resolved, and you feel every positive feeling associated with the problem being resolved. So are you ready? I'm now going to guide you through this. But first, I want you to pick something that you want to resolve. Now, first, I'm going to guide you into a relaxed state of mind. Okay, now, you may go to alpha, you may not. Don't worry about that. Here you're simply learning the technique. In the full program, I guide you to get to alpha in 3 seconds and theta in maybe 10 seconds, right? But here, you're just learning this process. So I'm going to ask you to imagine, to close your eyes, and we're just going to count down backwards from 10 to 1. On every count, you will feel yourself going deeper. Remember, don't worry about reaching alpha. All I'm trying to do here is to teach you the technique. You can practice this if you want in the morning, if you're doing the 40 to 1 day countdown. Or you can practice this if you enroll in the program and dive into the full Silva Ultramind system. As I count gently backwards from 10 to 1, you will feel yourself getting more and more relaxed and going deeper and deeper into a relaxed state of mind. 10, 9, 8, gently relaxing. 7, 6, 5, going deeper and deeper. 4, 3, 2, 1. You're now at the alpha level, a relaxed state of mind, where we are going to practice the 3 scenes technique. Directly in front of you, on the first screen, I want you to visualize a problem that you're looking to resolve. Feel the pain and frustration of this problem. It's okay to feel anger. It's okay to feel frustrated. Here's a tip. As you visualize this pain and frustration, exaggerate it. Make it even more severe than you might know it is. Exaggerating it establishes greater desire for it to resolve. Feel the pain. Feel the frustration. If you feel you need to punch a pillow, do it. Now you're going to move the scene 15 degrees to the left. Don't worry about getting the 15 exact. Basically, move it gently a little bit to the left. Now see yourself taking some action to resolve the problem. You don't have to know the exact action. You don't even have to know if it's correct. Simply show that you're committed. Now, gently move the screen another 15 degrees to the left. And now you're going to see the solution, the end result that you want. See the solution in all its majestic glory. See full color. If you can, hear sounds, feel smells. Especially, feel the positive emotions associated with this solution. Jose Silva found that if you see 2 or more people benefiting from the solution, the outcome is more likely to come to you. And now you may open your eyes. You just did the 3 scenes technique. Now, naturally, if you're doing this after fully being trained in the Silva Ultramind system, you're going to be able to go deeper. You're going to create more vivid visuals, more vivid emotions, and you're going to be able to see faster results. But this is a first step, and you can already start using this. Now, some of you may be wondering, how do I use this for healing? I'm so glad you asked. Healing is really powerful. The late Dr. O. Carl Simonton ran the Simonton Cancer Research Institute, and he did a famous study on imagery therapy, in other words, visualization to heal cancer. This is what he found. He taught imagery therapy to 159 patients with incurable cancer. All of these patients were expected to live only 12 months. 4 years later, 63 were alive. 14 showed no signs of cancer. 12 had cancer regressing, and 17 were stable. The average survival rate of the group doubled to 24.4 months, twice the expected average. Now, what was this powerful technique that Dr. O. Carl Simonton was teaching these patients? It was the Silva method. O. Carl Simonton was a Silva graduate. He even was invited to speak at the Silva conference after this famous study. And this is what he said. About the Silva system, I would say it is the most powerful single tool that I have to offer patients. Now, I can attest to this because I use Silva to heal my skin. When I was 17 years old, and by the way, this was just from reading the Silva books. Now, it took me a long time. I picked up the book when I was 14. I was practicing Silva. It was only when I was 17 that things started clicking. Remember, I hadn't attended a class. I didn't have the money. I was a teen. Now, you will get faster results because you have the opportunity to go into a Mindvalley class and truly master it. But for me, it took 4 years, but I persisted because I could see the potential of it. So as a teenager, I had horrible skin. I suffered from self-esteem problems because going to school, I was picked on by bullies. I had a nickname, Pimple Boy, or sometimes Pimple Face. And I hated it. I never went on a date or dared even speak to a girl my entire high school life because I felt ugly. When I was 17, I read in one of Jose's books, at this point I'd read multiple books by Jose, and he mentioned that the skin was the organ most susceptible to the power of the human mind. And it dawned on me, maybe I should try healing my skin. And so I practiced the technique that I just shared with you. And Jose says if you're looking at healing something, you have to practice the technique 3 times a day. Now each practice would take maybe 3 to 5 minutes, so it wasn't a big deal. It was no more than 10 to 12 minutes of meditation, 3 times a day. For 3 times a day, I would see my skin healing. I would start with the first screen where I would see my skin in its current horrible state. The second screen, I would see myself doing something to heal the skin. Now, here's the thing. If it's a health practice, you don't have to see yourself taking some particular pill or so on. Just see yourself doing something, and that something can be symbolic. Your subconscious mind understands symbolism. In the second screen, I saw myself looking up at the sky and then putting my hands in the sky and grabbing like this blue cream from the sky, as if the sky was as if the sky could be scooped up like a cream, rubbing this cream around my face, looking up at the sun coming down on this cream somehow healing and fixing my skin, then falling off, leaving a layer of beautiful, healthy skin underneath it. And in the third screen, I'd see myself confident, walking to classes again, not fearing being bullied, fully content with how I looked. In 5 weeks, I healed a skin condition, chronic acne, that I had had for 5 years. And I'd gone to doctors. I remember injections being put in my skin. It was horrible. My mom had spent so much money trying to help me heal my skin. I healed it in 5 weeks. So many Silva graduates have since used these techniques to heal their skin. So here's a quick summary for healing. Scene 1, see and feel the pain, feel the emotions of frustration. Scene 2, see some symbolic or real action taken to create the healing. Now, you can bring in your doctor or medicine, if any. If the doctor has given you some medicine, or if you have a doctor you love, see that doctor and walk.